I recently directed an acquaintance of mine to this YouTube channel, and he was quite impressed. He was quite impressed by the number of videos, and asked if this was the result of my previous studies. I was rather horrified at this, that somehow for all these videos I've just been regurgitating what I'd studied already. I tried to correct him on this point, but I'm not sure I succeeded. I mentioned at the beginning, I haven't actually read this text. This text, known as the Sagatikam, it's the final chapter of the Lankavatara Sutra, a so-called verse summary. A summary in verses. What I did was, I browsed through it, I flicked through it, much as you would a holiday brochure. And there were a couple of snapshots that caught my eye, and I thought, I'd like to go there. So let's start at the beginning, and in this way start our journey. And the journey isn't a set itinerary, it's not a set path. Each verse is a pointer to a destination. And that's what I'm doing in these videos. I'm following each pointer, following each verse. I'm a wayfarer, sometimes called a Dharma-farer, the Dharma being the teachings of the Buddha, or simply the teachings that point to truth. We're coursing in the truth, in the Dharma. We're Dharma-farers. That's a nice idea, isn't it? So I have no idea where these verses are going. Sometimes, in following them, I'm rather taken aback. And I wonder about what I'm saying, about what I'm saying in these videos. Am I really saying this? I'm astonished sometimes at where they're pointing to, and where I sometimes find myself. The scenery can be quite breathtaking at times, even though on the surface it looks like some dusty old textbook. You blow away the dust, unravel some of the language, and bingo. So far in this series, the first 296 verses have been covered, and we've touched on verse 297 in the previous video. And it's one of these moments where I'm somewhat astonished by what I find myself saying and the implications of it. And what have I been saying? Well, I've been talking about the possibility of stepping outside our own minds, of stepping beyond our own moods, of being free of our own mental programming. And the implications of this seem to be staggering. I should point out, it isn't easy. It's very subtle and very profound. And I should also point out that I put these into practice. I put what I'm saying into practice. I'm not just suggesting an interpretation. I don't think it's an exaggeration, but I find these teachings necessary for my very own survival. One of the more seductive aspects of Buddhism, even for those who aren't into it, is the image of the meditating Buddha. It's an iconic figure, isn't it? The golden Buddha in serene meditation, cut off from all the drama of the world. The Buddha who's escaped from the vicious cycle of samsaric suffering. We all want a bit of that, don't we? The trouble is, it can fuel a rather romantic notion of what spirituality is about getting away from it all. But there is some truth in that. Otherwise, what would be the point? On the other hand, we have to look at what we know to be the historical facts of the Buddha. And the historical facts are that he spent the best part of 50 years travelling around, managing an ever-growing order, dealing with the politics of that order and the organisation and the laying down of rules, dealing with family members who, like family members anywhere, can be quite troublesome. His aunt was in the order. She seemed to have been quite a forceful personality. His son was in the order. He had a cousin who was a literal pain in the side because he wanted control of the order and actually on a couple of occasions tried to murder the Buddha. The Buddha dealt with local potentates, local businessmen. He dealt with the rich and the poor. He dealt with the earnest and the misguided and the devout. So the point is, he wasn't somebody who'd cut himself off from everyday affairs. At least not on the surface. Deep down perhaps, and this is the point of the Buddha image, it's a symbolic representation. It doesn't represent some physical ideal. It represents an inner ideal, an inner attitude. And it's an attitude which allows you to be productive in the world. It is an attitude which allows you to deal with not only the horrors of the world, but the horrors of your own psychology. And the Buddha probably had a fine psychology. It wasn't such a problem for him. But most of us, if you scratch just a little below the surface, are not in the best of shape, to put it mildly. I was tempted to use a rather stronger term there, but it's not necessary. So this is why I say I find these teachings necessary for my own survival, because I've found that it is possible. I found the job which I'm doing, which is a part-time minimum wage menial job, a tremendous opportunity to put these teachings into practice, because the job, which I'm grateful for having, violates who I think I am. I don't know who I think I am, but I feel violated by this job. Although, objectively, the job itself isn't so bad. It's my reaction to it which is the problem. So there's a lot to work with there. So this is the point. Am I really saying we can get beyond our mind? Get beyond who we think we are? Get beyond our moods? Well, this is what the teachings are saying. And this is what I've found, albeit with a limited degree of success perhaps. But success is always limited. You just keep at it. But it certainly seems to be the case. And it's a very exciting prospect. Very exciting. It isn't easy, as I've said. You have to be always vigilant that you're not allowing any success to reinforce the ego, to reinforce some sense of identity, to reinforce mental constructs. You just keep at it. You keep at it without investing in hoped for consequences. Everything that happens as a result of following the teachings is a bonus, but it's not the main point. The main point is the teachings and the practice. And by continuing this, by continuing the practice, we can realize whatever fruits there are for ourselves without dwelling on them too much, though.